In our first conversation, we talked about those early immediate steps, the ones that help create just a little breathing room right after a spouse passes. Once a few weeks, maybe even a month have gone by, and there's a more grounded feeling, perhaps, that's the right time to begin turning the attention to a few other key areas. First is to take a look at any insurance, health, or employer benefits. This wouldn't apply to everybody, but if you are retired or on Medicare or didn't have active insurance policies in place, it won't be relevant perhaps, but if any of these are still relevant, they can play an important role in shaping your next steps. That might include health insurance, especially if you were covered under your spouse's employer plan, if they were still working. Life insurance benefits, either employer provided or policies purchased individually that can be claimed. And also employer-based compensation, which is one that gets forgotten quite a bit, like unused vacation or stock awards. I'd say it's also worth verifying that the funeral home has notified the Social Security Administration if your spouse was on Social Security and Medicare, so that their records are properly updated and they can make the appropriate adjustments. And then second is to make sure cash flow and bill payments are uninterrupted. You'll want to ensure that you have full access to checking and savings accounts in your name so that routine expenses are still being covered. If any bills or subscriptions were on auto pay through a card or account in your spouse's name, this is the time to switch those over. It's also a good idea to start reviewing income sources as well. That might include pension benefits if you're entitled as a surviving spouse and it's relevant, or Social Security survivor benefits, especially if you're over age 60. There's quite a bit of nuance around when and how to actually claim the Social Security benefits that might be available, really based on any individual's own situation and a variety of factors. There's different classifications of benefits that interact with each other differently, and waiting longer will result in higher benefits. So we'll actually have a separate conversation that dives into those details because, again, it's very nuanced. But then I'd say third is to locate the will and any trust documents. If you haven't already, this is an important step. If your spouse had a trust, the assets were either titled in the name of that trust or the trust was designated as a beneficiary of the assets, then the trust will document and explain how to handle the transfer and distribution of those assets. It would also name the successor trustee who will be responsible for overseeing that process, which is oftentimes the surviving spouse. Actually processing the actual administration and distribution of those items is not part of this step. We'll handle that down the road a little bit. Now, if all assets were either owned jointly with rights of survivorship, properly designated with beneficiaries, or held in a trust, probate may not be necessary and the will won't be needed, which is an ideal situation. But if probate is required, the will, it becomes essential because that's going to direct the court on how assets will pass via that probate process, and it'll also name the executor of that process as well. And then I'd say the key is just moving at a steady, manageable pace. Again, this is not about doing everything at once. It's about making progress one step at a time and documenting that progress and continuing to move on to what lies ahead.